In the K-drama industry, giving up is easier than staying. The spotlight is hard to hold, the right projects are harder to find, and talent alone has never guaranteed either one. These K-drama actors came dangerously close to giving up on acting altogether. One was told to his face that he is not handsome enough to be an actor. Another walked away at the height of his popularity and didn't explain why for years. Here's what happened when they chose to keep going. But first, an actress who spent 20 years waiting for a phone call, and the evening it finally came.
맥박도 혈압도 다 정상이고 손발도 따뜻하고 오줌도 나오고 똥도 나오고 우리 아들 안 죽어요.
Hye-ran did almost everything you would expect from someone trying to build a career as an actress. She studied theater at the Seoul Institute of the Arts, spent years working on stage, and eventually started trying to break into film. And yet nobody called. For years, Hye-ran kept working wherever she could while trying to find her way into movies. She did sound and lighting work on other people's sets, went door-to-door selling things, and even worked at a supermarket handing out free samples. She wasn't waiting around for acting to happen. She was trying to survive, while still hoping it would. Then she got pregnant and had a child. After giving birth, Hye-ran spent about 2 years away from acting. She has said that she desperately wanted to return to the stage, but found herself at home all day looking after her baby and wondering, who would call me? That uncertainty became frightening. She wondered whether she would ever be able to act again, even though she'd always thought of acting as something she would do for the rest of her life. Then, while she was still breastfeeding, the phone finally rang. A film company had seen her profile and asked her to audition that evening. She went. She has recalled how nervous she was on the way there, even thinking, what if I actually get it? She passed the audition, and the best part is the film was Park Chan-wook's Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. Hye-ran was 30, and it became her film debut. The role was small. She played a prison inmate who comments on Gumja's heavy eye makeup. But it was the opening she had been waiting for, and Lady Vengeance didn't instantly make her famous. Instead, Hye-ran spent the next several years taking supporting roles and steadily building a reputation. Then came Reply 1988 in 2015. The drama became a huge hit, and Hye-ran suddenly became one of the most recognizable actresses on television. Her popularity also translated into commercial work, with her agency reporting 6 CF deals after the drama's success. From there, the career she'd spent years trying to build finally accelerated. She took on more substantial television and film roles, eventually leading Honest Candidate in 2020. And that film changed her status again. Hye-ran won Best Actress at the 41st Blue Dragon Film Awards for Honest Candidate, becoming a leading actress after years of being known primarily for supporting roles. She's continued moving between leading and supporting roles ever since, including The Good Bad Mother and Cold-Blooded Intern. And at this point in her career, she's built the kind of reputation that means she no longer has to wonder whether someone will call. The actress who once spent years waiting for an opportunity is now the kind of actress opportunities come looking for. She had to wait years just to get her chance. Now, she has a career she never has to question. Hye-ran waited years for anyone to open the door. The next one was already inside when it closed again. What do you do when you've already made your debut, but 15 years later, you're still waiting for your career to begin?
5번 올리고 받으려고 그랬는데 3번 만에 받았어. 나는 너무 쉬워. 그치?
Well, Soo Hyun-jin kept going, even when she had almost no reason, to believe it would pay off. She debuted in 2001 as the main vocalist of Milk, an SM entertainment girl group. The group lasted about a year, and when it ended, Soo Hyun-jin moved into acting. Except the acting career didn't exactly take off. There was a 7-year stretch when she barely worked. She has described that period by saying that she had essentially become an aspirant again. She worked at a sandwich shop, opening the store and working the counter, while continuing to wonder when, or if, acting was ever going to happen for her. But she has said the hardest part wasn't the money. It was having to answer people when they asked what she was doing with her life. She wasn't singing anymore, she wasn't dancing anymore, and she wasn't getting acting jobs either. She has said she cried a lot during those years because she had spent so much of her life training in the arts that she couldn't imagine doing anything else. And somehow, she convinced herself that she was already too old to start over. She was still in her 20s. But after training since she was 4 and spending years trying to make entertainment work, starting again felt almost impossible. Eventually, even her parents began to wonder if she should stop. They had watched their daughter struggle for years, and they finally told her that maybe there was a reason things weren't working out. Perhaps she should consider doing something else. Soo Hyun-jin still gets emotional when she talks about that conversation because she knew her parents weren't trying to crush her dream. They had simply watched her struggle for so long that they were afraid she was hurting herself by refusing to let it go. And for a moment, she wondered if they were right. But she didn't quit. She kept auditioning, kept looking for opportunities, and eventually that persistence paid off. Sometimes you really do have to keep going long enough for the right opportunity to find you. For Soo Hyun-jin, that opportunity was another Miss O in 2016. She played Oh Hae-young, a woman who has spent her life being compared with another woman who happens to have exactly the same name. She's overlooked, dumped, and constantly made to feel like the lesser version of somebody else. Another Miss O became her breakthrough, and she won Best Actress at the Baeksang Arts Awards for the role. But even that didn't instantly erase the insecurity. Soo Hyun-jin has admitted that she struggled to enjoy her success because she was still afraid it could disappear. After years of being told, directly or indirectly, that she wasn't getting anywhere, suddenly hearing people say she was good didn't feel entirely real. So she kept proving it. She went on to lead Dr. Romantic, Temperature of Love, The Beauty Inside, Black Dog, and Why Her. And there was a particularly fitting moment on the set of Dr. Romantic. Han Suk-kyu, one of Korea's most respected actors, was so impressed by how thoroughly Soo Hyun-jin prepared that he reportedly joked that she should make a mistake once in a while. 15 years after her debut, Soo Hyun-jin had finally become the actress she'd spent all those years trying to become. 15 years, and the industry finally noticed her. The next one was noticed almost straight away, and it still took nearly 30.
아니 이게 진짜 뭔 구시기 시한다. 네 성명 짧은 게 내 탓이냐? 명도 짧은 애비 준 걸 애한테 미안해 나와서. 내 딸 내가 찾아가요.
Hye-ran was already a respected actress, long before the industry started paying her like one. She joined the Yoon-woo Theater Company in 1999 and made her stage debut the following year. By 2004, she had already won a popularity award in Korean theater, followed by the Dong-wook Theater Award for Best New Actor in 2006. So this wasn't a story about an actress who wasn't good enough. People knew Hye-ran could act. The problem was that acting still wasn't paying her enough to live on. She once described performing in theater for an entire year without taking a break. And when she eventually calculated what she'd made, her annual income hadn't even reached 10 million won. So outside the theater, she worked wherever she could. Manual labor, rolling gimbap, and selling it to PC rooms, early shifts at a bakery. Whatever brought in enough money to keep going. And somehow, she accepted it because she loved acting. Then her mother became seriously ill. That changed things. Hye-ran has said that she seriously considered quitting because she felt she was failing as a daughter. She was struggling financially, her mother was sick, and she began wondering whether continuing to chase a career that barely supported her was selfish. For the first time, the question wasn't whether she loved acting. It was whether she could afford to keep choosing it. She didn't quit. Instead, an opportunity came from someone who understood exactly what she could do. Bong Joon-ho had been watching theater and looking for actors who hadn't yet been given much of a chance on screen. He saw Hye-ran performing as a clown and asked her to audition for Memories of Murder. She got the part. It was a small role, but it became her screen debut. And more importantly, it gave filmmakers outside the theater world a reason to start paying attention to her. And once they did, they had a hard time forgetting her. Hye-ran has one of those faces and performances that can completely change the temperature of a scene. She doesn't need a huge amount of screen time to make a character memorable, and she's equally convincing whether she's playing someone warm and ordinary or someone deeply unsettling. That became especially obvious as her television career grew. Goblin, When the Camellia Blooms, The Glory, Mask Girl. Each role showed a different side of her. And by the time The Glory came around, she wasn't simply a familiar supporting actress anymore, she was one of the performances audiences were talking about. Then came When Life Gives You Tangerines in 2025, where she once again showed why directors keep coming back to her. The performance earned Hye-ran Best Supporting Actress at both the Baeksang Arts Awards and the Blue Dragon Series Awards. She also appeared in Park Chan-wook's No Other Choice in 2025, more than 20 years after her screen debut. And after nearly 3 decades in the industry, there's something almost charming about what Hye-ran still says she wants. She wants to make a living from acting. Not become the biggest star in Korea, not chase celebrity, just make a living doing the job she spent almost 30 years proving she's exceptionally good at. How close does it have to get before you stop? The next one came within one failed audition of finding out.
진짜 있더라, 윤석이 시체. 와, 이걸 얼마를 받아야 돼? 그러니까 누군데? 이게 누구냐에 따라 금액이 달라지는 문제거든.
말해주면?
말만 해, 누군지.
Kim Gun-woo was ready to give up acting when the role that changed his life finally came along. Before The Glory, he was barely getting by. At one point, he had to ask his agency for an advance on money he hadn't even earned yet. He'd been auditioning and failing, sometimes making it all the way to the final stage before losing the role. Eventually, he stopped for a while. He has talked about how lost he felt during that period. He was surrounded by more experienced actors and had started questioning whether he had any future in the industry. By his own account, he was confused and didn't know what he should do next. He was ready to leave. Then he was cast as Sun Myung-ho in The Glory. The role was substantial, and the drama became a massive hit. Sun Myung-ho was one of the 5 former school bullies terrorizing Moon Dong-un, and Kim Gun-woo made him the kind of character viewers loved to hate. Before The Glory aired, he had only around 2,000 Instagram followers. After the drama's success, that number jumped to roughly 160,000 in a matter of weeks. The actor who had been struggling to get auditions was suddenly being recognized in public and getting attention for what he would do next. He was also nominated for Best New Actor at the 59th Baeksang Arts Awards for The Glory. And there's something particularly satisfying about what happened to the money. That advance he'd needed before The Glory was successful, he paid it all back. The agency had essentially carried him through a period when he couldn't even be sure when his next paycheck would come. Then The Glory changed his circumstances almost overnight, and he didn't disappear after the hit. In 2025, Kim Gun-woo took on major roles in You and Everything Else alongside Kim Go-yoon and Park Ji-hyun, and last summer with Lee Jae-wook and Choi Sung-eun. He also took the lead in the short drama Surgical Road Trip. The actor who once needed an advance to get through a difficult period was now being trusted with major roles of his own. Kim Gun-woo came close to stopping without ever naming a day for it. The next one named hers in advance.
안다고 해야 하나, 모른다고 해야 하나.
뭐야? 잘생겼어?
나름 반반한 듯?
뭐래?
Jun Yeo-been was starting to lose hope, so she gave herself a deadline. If she hadn't made it by 30, she would give up acting for good. She started acting at 26, much later than many of her peers. Her first credited screen role came in The Treacherous in 2015, followed by small parts in independent films. Then came After My Death. Jun Yeo-been was getting close to the deadline she'd set for herself when she took the role. The film premiered at the 2017 Busan International Film Festival, where she won Actress of the Year. She also picked up several newcomer awards, including Best New Actress at the Bill Film Awards. She was 28, 2 years before the deadline. Then came Be Melodramatic in 2019, and 2 years later, Vincenzo. Jun Yeo-been was 31 when she played Hong Cha-young opposite Song Joong-ki. This time, she wasn't an actress people were discovering at an independent film festival. She was suddenly one of the leading women in a major hit drama. And that opened the door to a very different kind of career. Jun Yeo-been went on to Night in Paradise, A Time Called You, Glitch, Harbin, and Dark Nuns, moving between film and television without disappearing from either. Then, in 2025, she had 2 major dramas, Our Movie Opposite Nam Gung-min and Ms. Incognito, where she played a bodyguard forced to live under a new identity. Ms. Incognito finished with a 7.1% nationwide rating, its highest rating and, at the time, the second highest rating in ENA drama history. The recognition followed her too. For Dark Nuns, Yeo-been won Best Actress at the Golden Cinematography Awards and picked up major Best Supporting Actress nominations. For Our Movie, she won the Excellence Award for Actress in a miniseries at the 2025 SBS Drama Awards. So that deadline she gave herself? She never actually needed it. By the time 30 arrived, Yeo-been wasn't wondering whether she could make acting work anymore. She was already moving from one major project to the next, with awards, leading roles, and a place among Korea's established actresses. She spent years wondering if anyone would ever make room for her. Turns out, once they did, she didn't have to ask twice. Nobody was making room for Yeo-been. Room was never what the next one was. Short of. Not everyone on this list was struggling to find work. Lee Dong-wook had plenty of it. The problem was that he was starting to wonder if he was still good enough to do it.
너 울었어? 기타 누락자 앞에서? 살짝 옆이었어. 비스듬했어. 한심하다. 넌 이제 끝났어. 여자는 틱틱대고 눈 안 마주치고 무관심한 그런 남자 좋아해. 어디서 눈물이야.
By then, Lee Dong-wook had already spent nearly 2 decades as a leading man. He broke through with My Girl in 2005, followed by La Dolce Vita, Partner, and Scent of a Woman. Then came Goblin in 2016, and suddenly he was one of the most recognizable faces on Korean television all over again. His Grim Reaper became one of the drama's most memorable characters. He was at the point in his career where nobody needed an introduction to Lee Dong-wook anymore. Then came Life. The 2018 drama landed in the 4 to 5% range, well below the expectations surrounding it. Lee Dong-wook took the reaction hard. He later said he was unhappy with his own acting, while the online criticism made him start thinking that maybe he was the reason the drama hadn't succeeded. It got bad enough that he barely left his house for almost a month. And then he admitted something he'd never said publicly before. He had seriously considered retiring, not taking a little time off, not waiting for another good script. He was thinking about leaving Korea and starting over somewhere else because he had begun to believe he shouldn't be acting anymore. Then Gong-yoo called. It was late at night and Gong-yoo said he was already on his way over. Lee Dong-wook didn't want to see him. He assumed they'd end up talking about his slump. They didn't. They just talked about ordinary things. And somehow, that was what Lee Dong-wook needed. He realized he'd become so consumed by what strangers online thought of him that he'd forgotten there was a whole world outside those comments. That was the world he belonged to. He went back to work the following year with Touch Your Heart, followed by Tale of the Nine-Tailed, Bad and Crazy, and A Shop for Killers. He even took on a different role as the host of Wook Talk, showing that his career wasn't tied to recreating Goblin. And he hasn't slowed down. In 2025, he starred in The Divorce Insurance and The Nice Guy, and in 2026 returned as Jung-jin-man in A Shop for Killers 2, with The Facade of Love also upcoming. But the best part of the story isn't simply that Lee Dong-wook didn't retire, it's that he eventually learned to trust his own talent again. It took him 20 years to trust the work. The next one's doubt was never about the work at all.
나도 분식점에서 수십만 원 긁어본 건 처음이네요. 아니 하리 씨도 고등학생 때 그렇게 많이 먹었어요?
글쎄요.
아무튼 기분 좋았습니다. 하리 씨가 사장님한테 나 남자친구로 소개해줘서.
What if you finally got the career you wanted, only to realize you weren't sure you wanted it anymore? Hyo-seop found himself there. He was born in Seoul and moved to Toronto at 7. He returned to Korea alone at 17, and after just 3 days, he reportedly wanted to go home. He stayed. He became a JYP trainee and spent nearly 3 years preparing to become an idol. He liked singing and dancing, but once the training turned into work, the pressure changed how he felt about it. He eventually decided that music might be better left as a hobby, so he stopped. An offer from another agency eventually redirected him toward acting, and he made his entertainment debut in 2015. Then the acting career started working, he landed steady roles, and eventually became a recognizable leading man. But even after getting the kind of opportunities many aspiring actors spend years chasing, Hyo-seop admitted that he struggled with life on set and wondered whether acting was really the right path for him. And the reason was surprisingly simple. He doesn't like standing out. For someone whose job requires cameras, attention, interviews, and millions of people watching him, that isn't exactly an easy personality trait to work around. What helped change his perspective was advice from Han-suk-kyu, one of Korea's most respected actors. Acting is fun, but it's even more fun when you do it well. That stayed with Hyo-seop. Instead of asking whether acting suited him, he started thinking about how he could become better at it. And the career that had once made him uncomfortable kept growing. Dr. Romantic was the first sign that he had found his footing. Then Business Proposal made him a household name among a new generation of K-drama viewers. By the time he took on A Time Called You, he wasn't the nervous actor wondering whether he belonged anymore. He had become the leading man. And he kept pushing beyond television, taking on Omniscient Reader, The Prophecy, and voicing Jinu in Netflix's K-pop Demon Hunters. 10 years into his acting career, Hyo-seop has said he's only now starting to feel comfortable in front of a camera. Somewhere along the way, the career he once wasn't sure he wanted became something he was finally comfortable owning. Hyo-seop had to be talked into wanting the job. The next one took about 30 others to hold on to it.
수신양호 작전 시작. 911기 뒤로 빠져. 내가 앞으로 간다. 수리탄 투척. 나와. 나와. 그렇지. 야, 해병대답게 다 던져. 빠지라고.
Kyung-ho spent years taking whatever job he could find just to afford another audition. Then he became a father and started thinking about quitting for real. Kyung-ho eventually counted his part-time jobs, about 30. He couldn't take a normal permanent job because an audition could come with almost no warning. So he took whatever work allowed him to leave when an acting opportunity appeared. He did manual labor, sold red ginseng over the phone, worked as a mock patient so doctors could practice on him, and even stood outside cosmetics shops dressed as a clown, blowing up balloons for customers. He went to acting school with a friend from his high school, Park Hyo-jun, and the two of them worked part-time together while they were doing it. Both of them made it eventually. It took a long time. For years, he figured he could handle being broke. His cards had been cut off and he'd gone into debt before, but he thought that if he was the only one suffering, he could carry it himself. Then he became a father. That changed everything. Kyung-ho said becoming a father was the point when he seriously wondered whether he should quit acting. He didn't want his daughter growing up with the same financial uncertainty he'd spent years accepting for himself. He even considered learning a trade and finding another way to support his family. So, when the Battleship Island came along, he decided to treat it as one last chance. He lost around 34 kilograms for the role. And then it didn't work the way he hoped. He has said that after the weight loss, the offers stopped coming, and that he prefers where he is now. He kept going. Over the years, Kyung-ho became one of those actors audiences recognized even when they didn't immediately remember his name. After nearly 3 decades in the business, though, 2026 has finally given him the kind of public recognition he'd been waiting for. Manager Kim became a major hit, climbing to 23.1% nationwide and turning Kyung-ho into one of the most talked about actors on Korean television. And his popularity isn't limited to dramas anymore. His appearances on variety and web shows have taken off as well, with one recent Pingyego appearance reaching 17.7 million views. He's gone from being the familiar supporting actor audiences kept seeing to someone people are actively tuning in to watch. The recognition has followed. In 2026, Kyung-ho won his first Blue Dragon Series Award for Best Supporting Actor for the TVing series Legend of the Mess Sergeant. And when he looks back at the period when he considered quitting, there's an interesting change in how he talks about acting. Becoming a father made him stop worrying so much about whether a role was important enough for him. He decided that if there was work, he would do it. And now, at 46, he's finally getting to see what all that persistence led to. Kyung-ho thought about quitting and didn't. The last one thought about it and did.
할머니 같은 게 뭔데?
쿠키도 만들고 나쁜 말도 안 하고 남자 팬티도 안 입고.
그래? 그럼
하지마!
At the height of her early career, Yuh-jung did something most actors would never consider. She quit. Yuh-jung never went to film school or formally trained as an actress. She was studying Korean literature at Hanyang University when she passed an open audition for TBC in 1966 and left university to enter television. Within a few years, she was already a star. Her first film was Woman of Fire in 1971, and her performance made an immediate impression. She won Best Actress at the Blue Dragon Film Awards and Best New Actress at the Grand Bell Awards. Then she got married. In 1974, Yuh-jung married singer Jo Young-nam, moved to the United States, had 2 sons, and stepped away from acting. She thought she was done. The marriage lasted about a decade and eventually ended. Yuh-jung returned to Korea in 1985 with 2 children to raise and no acting career waiting for her. And her first thought wasn't even to return to acting. She still owned a house in Florida, so she considered going back and finding a job at a supermarket. The minimum wage was $2.75 an hour. She did the math. She couldn't raise 2 children on that and pay the mortgage. Her friends told her to go back to acting. She wasn't convinced. The industry had changed while she was gone, and she felt that everyone coming up had gone to film school, while she hadn't. But she went back anyway. And this time, she wasn't waiting for the perfect role. She took whatever came. Small parts, supporting roles, television, film. She has described that period as becoming a survivor. After spending years as a leading actress, she stopped worrying about how important a role was and focused on making a living. Coming back as a divorced woman in Korea in the late 1980s wasn't easy either. She has spoken about the stigma she faced and how difficult it was to rebuild a career after nearly a decade away. But she stayed. Her range eventually became one of the things that set her apart, especially as she took on complicated older women instead of being confined to the limited roles often given to actresses her age. And finally came the project that completely changed the second half of her career, Minari. At 73, Yuh-jung became the first Korean actor ever to win an acting Oscar, taking Best Supporting Actress for playing Soon-ja. Then came Pachinko and more international work, including The Wedding Banquet in 2025. That same year, the Singapore International Film Festival honored Yuh-jung with its Screen Icon Award, making her the first South Korean recipient. She's 79 now, and she's still working. She gave up on acting. She had no grand ambitions left. And somehow, she came back to become the first Korean actor ever to win an Oscar. So, which of these actors are you most grateful didn't quit? For me, I'm definitely grateful Gong Yoo encouraged Lee Dong-wook to keep going. Imagine a K-drama world without Lee Dong-wook. And who do you think I missed? Some of these actors only made it onto this list because someone mentioned their story in passing, so I'm sure there are more out there. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see the couples still together this 2026, click on this next video.